Hi, it's Elise here at Bowman Library, the whole new teen book spotlight. So this week we are exploring some of the new and pretty interesting graphic novels that we have come into our collection over the past couple of months. And there are some amazing graphic novels that have come in. Now, I know some of you love graphic novels, others of you may not be the biggest fan of graphic novels, but here's what I love about graphic novels, is they can be pretty much anything. And some of the choices we have today, we have some nonfiction, we have some adaptation of written books that you can see visually, and we have some amazing, unique stories that I cannot wait to share with you. So we have 6 that we're going to take a look at, so let's get started. Our first one is Hibarari House. So this realistic graphic novel follows 19-year-old Now as she decides that she's going to take a gap year and she's going to move to Japan for a year so that she can discover this culture and be immersed in this culture that she's been neglecting from her heritage and at a very emotional cost. Her mom is from Japan. And Now is half Japanese, half American, and she's kind of purposely chosen to avoid this whole part of who she is, and she's really regretting it. So her solution is to move to Japan for a year and to immerse herself in the culture and live and breathe Japan. When she arrives there, she doesn't know anyone. She's booked to stay in what's called a Hibarari house. It's basically like this boarding house for teenagers and people in their early 20s. And she quickly makes friends with the 2 others who are going to be her roommates. Their names are Tina and Huang. And then there's 2 boys living in the house that you know are going to come into play as well. You'll follow Now and her new friends as they immerse themselves in this culture. They're even going to Japanese language school so they can become fluent in the language, and they learn more about themselves than they ever thought they possibly could through this experience. You will be able to relate to all of them as they try new things, they experience new things, they find themselves being homesick and heartbroken at times, and you'll see them grow in their skills as well as in their personalities and their relationships with one another. This is one of my personal favorites of the year so far. I highly recommend this one. This is Hibarari House. Graceling. So this is an adaptation. This was originally like a chapter book about maybe almost 15 years ago now, and they just turned it into an amazing graphic novel. So this takes place in a kingdom known as the 7 Kingdoms. It's this whole world. And it's in this world that individuals, some are born with the same color eyes, others are born with 2 different color eyes. And the ones that have 2 different color eyes, they are called a grace. They have these unique talents. And our main character, Katsa, she's a grace. She has 1 green eye, 1 blue eye, and her grace, or her unique talent or skill, is that she is this ruthless fighter. She has these superior fighting abilities which make it really hard for people to defeat her. Plus, she doesn't know when to stop. And because of this ability, her uncle, who is the king, to an extent, pretty much takes advantage of her, and she almost becomes like this thug for him, this enforcer, and she kind of lays down the law and she takes care of all the problems he's having in the kingdom. Now, as she gets older, she's not in favor of this. She doesn't see where this is actually justice, but she doesn't know how to voice that, especially that would go against the king. And it's when she meets another Grace who is there visiting, whose name is Poe, that she starts talking to him, and he's there on this quest to find his grandfather who's been missing, that he thinks has been kidnapped. And when Katsa decides to join Poe on his quest to find his grandfather, the 2 of them discover a secret that could consequentially possibly change everything in the kingdom, for good or for bad, depending on whose hands this secret could fall into. If you enjoy an adventure that's fantasy, and there is a heavy dose of romance in this one, you've been forewarned. You will enjoy this one. If you love how that sounds, Graceling is for you. Now, I will tell you this, there are 4 books total in the series. The first book is the only one currently right now that is a graphic novel, but as soon as you get to the end of this one, there is a cliffhanger ending. You are going to want to know what happens with Katsa, so we do have book 2. It's in written form, so you can start with graphic novel, get a visual in your head, move on to the chapter book for book 2. This is Graceling. Run by the late John Lewis. Okay, so we talked about March before on some past ones. March is this amazing graphic novel trilogy that's all about like the civil rights movement through the March and Selma, leading up to the Voting Acts Rights of 1965. It's all about John Lewis's role in that. This picks up right when that trilogy ends. Run is going to be book 1 in this new trilogy. So, starts right at the start, right after the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is signed, and you will follow the events of what happens next through the eyes of John Lewis. And I think everyone at the time when this book starts, they think, oh, we're getting this piece of legislation enacted, everything's going to change. But it quickly soon comes to realization that things aren't going to change. They're not going to change overnight. If anything, they almost get worse. And they're supposed to be getting better. Explores events that take place from attacks from white supremacists to riots. It starts tackling international issues such as apartheid, taking place in South Africa. And you will be part of this exploration of John Lewis as an individual as the civil rights movement progresses. You'll learn about his role, you'll learn about the events on a national and an international scale, and it's this unique viewpoint that you'll read and you'll learn through the eyes and viewpoint of John Lewis. And you'll find yourself exploring, learning, questioning, and discovering what happened while the civil rights movement was taking place then and still ongoing today. This is Run. Between Shades of Grey. So this is a graphic novel adaptation of the book Between Shades of Grey, which is one of my all-time favorites. Highly recommend it. I will tell you the graphic novel's pretty good as well. Does leave some stuff out. I still recommend the chapter book, but I had to talk about this one because I love a good adaptation. Just like Graceling, this was based on a written book. Now, this is all about 15-year-old Lena, who's growing up during World War II in Lithuania, and her family one day is at home, and these Soviet Union soldiers barge into their house. They arrest them all because her father, who is a college professor, has been speaking out against Stalin and the government, and that is a huge no. And in order to punish them, they arrest them. Her father gets put into one line. Her mom, and her brother are on another line. And they are put on these trains. And they have no idea where they're going. And before they know it, the train arrives after weeks on this journey with no food, no water, and a train car that's used to store animals in. And they find themselves that they are sent to a Siberian work camp where the conditions are horrible, there's very little food, and it's going to be up to them and the people that they have bonded with in order to work together and to support each other if they are going to survive. Based on true stories, this really happened. The book is amazing, but what I appreciate about this graphic novel is it puts a visual on the conditions, what actually happened, as people were sent to these Siberian work camps in the middle of World War II. Well, we're talking about everything that was on in World War II. This was going on in the Soviet Union. Highly recommend it. This is Between Shades of Grey. Check Please, Volume 1. So this graphic novel is the first in a duology. The second one is out already. So once you get done with this one, maybe even check out the second one when you get this one, because you're going to want to follow Eric and his adventures again, because this is all about Eric Biddle, who goes by Biddy. He is from this small town in Georgia. He loves to bake pies. He loves to sing. He's used to be a figure skater, and then he got into playing hockey. Before he knows it, he gets this hockey scholarship to go to this small college up in Massachusetts to play hockey. So Eric takes advantage of it, but when he gets there, he realizes that things are completely different. The game is more physical. His teammates are completely the polar opposite of his teammates back at home in Georgia. His teammates now do not understand him. They don't understand how he can be baking pies, how he can be singing. And the other thing is, his old team was way more accepting of who he is as an individual, and Eric has no idea how he's going to tell them that he's gay, and he doesn't even know if he ever does, if they are going to accept him for this. As the season progresses, though, Eric starts to win over his teammates one by one, and they start to kind of realize who he is as an individual, and they start to appreciate him for who he is. And then you get into a little bit that Eric soon starts to find himself attracted to their team captain, which throws a whole other layer into what Eric's trying to figure out. Now, this volume follows his first 2 years of college. Even if you're not a sports fan, even if you're not a hockey fan, you can appreciate this one. Highly recommend it. This is Check Please Volume 1. And our last one for today is Amico Superstar. When our graphic novel starts, we meet the main character, Amico. She's sneaking back into her house one night. She looks like she's been out partying, having a really good time. She's exhausted. And then when we get inside, she's laying in her bedroom. We as the reader are then transported back in time to a year before this night. And we get to see firsthand the transformation that she goes through, because a year before our story picks up, she's known just as Emily. She's this babysitter, self-described geek, and she kind of was a loner. She kept to herself. And then one trip to the mall changes everything, because it's there that she stumbles across this underground performing art scene. And soon, Emily finds herself sucked in. And then she decides she wants to get up there. She wants to create a performance, and she wants to get up there and she wants to perform. And it becomes immensely popular, and then leads to her changing her name to Amico. And she gets this whole kind of like following in this underground performing club scene. Her performances, though, come at a cost. And Amico does not know how far is too far until she's crossed the line. And now she's not even sure what can be done, if anything can be done, to salvage her relationships and who she is as an individual. And what can you do to make everything right again if maybe that person doesn't want, care what you think at this point anymore. Anyone who's ever found themselves in a situation in which they've lost themselves, maybe they've hurt someone else, they've crossed the line, they don't know how to get back across that line, they can totally relate to Amico. This is Amico Superstar. So these are just 6 of the graphic novels that we have here at the library. And again, a lot of them are new, and some of them are amazing ones of the year. If these are what's coming out already, I cannot wait to see what happens with graphic novels as this year continues, because it is off to an amazing start. So I hope you come on out. Check out one of these graphic novels. If you love graphic novels, if you want to try something new, this is a great place to start. Or we have a whole graphic novel section I encourage you to take a look at. Maybe you find something a little bit different there that might strike your fancy a little bit more. I hope you tune back next week. We have a whole new teen book spotlight, and I hope you have an amazing week.